Okay, shalom, I am back. So now we're going to look at part 3. And in this part, we're going to look at how did men obtain their wives. And we're going to compare the two between what you see happen with the concubine and what you see when a man obtains a wife. What is the difference? Okay, so we're going to look at some cases here. We're going to look at Isaac, and Rivka. So Isaac and Rebecca, which we say in Hebrew, Yisak and Rivka. Okay. We're also going to look at how Yaakov attained his two wives, Leah and Rachel, or what they call Leah and Rachel. We're going to look at how Caleb, how he gave his daughter away as to wife. We're going to look at how Samson, Shimshon, obtained his wife, his Philistine wife. And let's see. And I'll briefly touch about how David obtained his first wife, Michal. Okay. So we want to look at the story in Genesis chapter 24. We're going to focus on how Yitzhak obtained his wife, Rivka. Now, Abraham, I'm just summarizing this, okay? Go back and read through the whole chapter, okay? Genesis chapter 24. Because otherwise, if I read through everything, it'll probably be like a 3 to 4 hour video. Probably at least 3 hours. But I want to just highlight on the key points so you can see the difference between the two. So this is Genesis chapter 24. Abraham, being a very wealthy man, provides a bride price or dowry to his eldest servant, okay, to go get a wife for his son Yitzhak. Now remember, in this case, he doesn't send his son off to go get a wife. He sends a servant to go get a wife for his son, okay, to keep him in the promised land. He didn't want him to leave the promised land that Yah had promised to him and to his descendants. So if you look at this, note that how Yitzhak attained his wife was through his father. Okay, his father took the initiative here. So as I wrote down, so the father is the one in this case responsible to get or find a suitable wife for his son. Okay, in Genesis chapter 24, with Yah's help and guidance, Yitzhak obtains a suitable, beautiful wife from his kinsman, from his father's house. Okay, so Abraham sends him off to his kinsman, obviously, and Rivka is one of the descendants of his kinsman from one of Abraham's brothers. Okay, children. Okay. If you look at Genesis chapter 29, how did Yaakov obtain his wives? Okay, Leah and Rachel. Now, obviously, this scenario is a little bit different because Yitzhak didn't send somebody to go get a wife for Yaakov. Now, remember, in this particular scenario, Yaakov, okay, aka Israel, Jacob, he had to flee for his life from his brother Esau because his brother wanted to murder him for taking, the blessing and the birthright. All right. So he flees for his life. Obviously, he goes to his kinsman's land, okay, where his relatives are. Okay, his mother, Rivka, tells him, go to, my father's house. Go over there to your kinsman, okay? You'll be safe there. Flee from your brother because your brother wants to kill you, all right? So, in that particular state, Yaakov is destitute. All right, he's made poor all of a sudden because now he's left everything. He didn't receive any oh, here's all the things, here's all your goods. He left with nothing but probably the shirt on his back, okay, for his life. So when he finally gets over to the land, he winds up working for his uncle Laban for 7 years to obtain enough wealth, enough resources to marry and to support his desired wife, Rachel. And obviously we know the story. Laban tricks Yaakov And so Yaakov not only obtains Leah, but then after that obtains Rachel. But now he has to work for both women 7 years. I mean, for 7 years each. Okay, so 14 years total. And we know in this case, with having, since he was destitute, he had to work to be qualified to obtain his wife. So essentially in these cases, what they had to do, like with Yaakov had to do this in order to obtain his wife. He had to have enough resources to support his wife. So this is one of the things you see very common when a man obtains a wife. He had to do something. He had to prepare a place for his wife so that he could support his wife. He couldn't just, okay, I like this woman, I'm going to marry her, and he has no means to support her or to provide for her. It was expected, obviously, as a husband, as an ish, that a man would, in covenant before Yah and with the woman, would protect, support, and provide for this woman, and also be intimate with her, be made one with her, okay? So take the time to understand her. All right, so we see that happen here. The case is a little bit different because he had to run for his life. So he worked instead of instantaneously attaining a wife, because he didn't have any resources. He had to work for his wife to have enough resources to support his wife. Because at that time he wasn't able to give like a bride price or dowry. He had to work for a number of years in order to be able to support his wife. And so, I mean, with that, you could see how there's a common theme that in a lot of these cases, a man had to go ahead of, before he could marry a woman to be his wife, he had to prepare things. He had to prepare a home. He had to have the resources to support her, okay? There was a certain framework a man had to obtain before he could go and be married and be made one with a woman. Okay, we also see in Joshua chapter 15, verse 16 and 17, and also in Judges chapter 1, verse 12 and 13. I'll read Joshua chapter 15, verse 16 and 17, and it reads, "And Caleb said, He that smites Kiriath Sepher and take it, to him will I give Achsah, my daughter, to wife. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, took it and gave him Achsah, his daughter, to wife." So here in this case, we see that Othniel obtained Caleb's daughter, Achsah, as wife by taking the city, Kiriath Sepher, as a bride price and dowry to make full provision for his new wife. Okay, now this is a little bit ironic because you're going to find out that Achsah is, of course, is the daughter of Caleb, but her mother was a concubine. Okay, now listen to this very carefully. Okay, Caleb, Achsah is the daughter of Caleb, who her mother was actually Caleb's concubine. All right, so even though Caleb had a concubine, he actually had two concubines. He wanted to make sure that his daughter didn't enter into a concubine state. He wanted to make sure that his daughter was, became a man's wife, not a man's concubine, which is very interesting. So, I think for him, it's his reputation on the line, perhaps. But, yeah, so what I wrote down here is that Achsah's father, Caleb, initiated this marriage. Okay, he was the one who says, if you do this, if you can get all these resources, all this wealth, okay, from a city, because obviously if you're going to conquer a city, you're going to obtain resources from that city, okay, goods, all kinds of properties. If you can contain the resources to support my daughter, then you can have my daughter as a wife, okay, it's essentially what he's saying. So Achsah's father, Caleb, initiated this marriage and was conducted under his supervision, direction, and guidance. Okay, so once again, notice this pattern, that it's the father who is responsible to get or find a suitable husband for his daughter. Okay? Because he figured if the man was going to be strong enough and responsible enough to go and fight and take over a city, he should be able to take care of his daughter, right? So once again, the father is the one responsible to find or get a suitable husband for his daughter. Now, as I mentioned, Caleb did have 2 concubines. So obviously, maybe in this situation, their fathers weren't involved. Okay? We don't know the scenario by which he obtained Ephah and Ma'akah. We don't know. Could it be that Caleb didn't make a covenant with these 2 women? Or because he didn't pay a bride price or dowry, because they came from Egypt. So I could imagine, like, maybe the process, they didn't have this protective system set up in place. I mean, obviously he received the correct instructions after the 10 Commandments, the 10 words, and other laws, statutes, judgments were given to the children of Israel. So I would think by this time he would understand that, this is what Yah expects, that he expects the daughters of Israel to be wives, not concubines. And so he makes sure that his daughter is not going to be a concubine, but going to be a wife. Even though Caleb came from the land of Egypt, he learned, a lot of those of Israel learned the Egyptians' ways. And probably being concubines, being boyfriend and girlfriends and all kinds of stuff was probably a common thing in Egypt. But that's not what Yah was training up his sons and daughters to follow. He wanted them to have a higher standard, and a standard that would protect both the male and the female in this scenario, in a marital covenant. Okay? So, there's some questions I had, but obviously, if you think about it, Caleb did come from Egypt, even though he was of Israel, so he probably might have tamed them the Egyptian way. Okay? And that's why it lists them as concubines. But he knew that Yah was instructing them on the way that they should go, and that Yah had higher and better expectations for his people. So these 2 women had no father or male covering, perhaps, to arrange a ketubah with them when they were in Egypt. Maybe that was the case, right? We just don't know. Could it be that in order to truly be a wife, that a bride price or dowry is required according to the Hebraic customs? These are some different thoughts. Okay? Kitty cat. We'll look at another scenario. Judges chapter 14. Excuse me. How Shimshon obtained his wife. All right? Now, Shimshon obtained a Philistine wife. Okay? A wife from the land of the Philistines. Okay? Not of his own people, which, obviously his parents weren't for that, but they still wanted him to obtain a wife according to the teachings of Yah, according to the ways of Israel. Now, verse 1 here says, and Shimshon, which is Samson, went down to Timnath and saw a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. And he came up and told his father and his mother and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me. He said, now therefore get her for me to wife. Notice that was very interesting. Here he is. He sees a woman that he wants, that he desires. And he doesn't go and say, okay, let me go talk to the woman and say, hey, let's go out, you and me, let's go to the movies, let's go to the park. No. Because anything could happen between, the time he says hello to the time they go out somewhere in secret, and he's all tempted, and, his hormones are through the roof, and lo. What does he do instead? What he does instead, the righteous way, he goes and tells his father and says, Dad, I see a woman that I want to be my wife. Go get her for me to marry. Go get her for me to be my wife. And the way what the father would do, the father would say, okay, well, let's go, let me go to her father and we would make the arrangements. So in this case, it was his father and his mother that went to Timnath to make the ketubah, the marital arrangements with her father, so that everybody understood, okay, this is what Shimshon's going to do to provide for your daughter, Mr. So-and-so and so-and-so, okay? And he's going to go prepare a place, and then he'll come back and get her when he's done preparing everything he needs to prepare to get her. So that's what we see here in this particular chapter, chapter 14 of Judges. So I'm going to paraphrase. So when a man, okay, in this case Shimshon, saw a woman that he desired to marry, he went where? He went to his father and his mother to initiate the marital process. Shimshon knew that his father, not him, was primarily responsible to get him a suitable wife of choice. He didn't go to start secretly dating this woman, because if he did, he would be essentially making her a concubine. Okay? And then verse 7 reads here, and he went down and so this is when his father and his mother went to Timnath. Okay, so they all went to Timnath together. So while they're there with him, he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Shimshon well. Okay, I'll read again. And he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Shimshon well. So when Shimshon was speaking with this woman, his father and his mother were with him. And his father, as I mentioned, made arrangements with her father. Now verse 8 reads, and after a time he returned to take her. So what was he doing during that time, those days? He was preparing a place for his future wife. He was preparing everything to make sure that he had everything in place to provide for her. All right. Verse 10. So his father went down unto the woman. So his father, to let the woman know, okay, he's ready to marry you. Come on. Let's have a wedding feast, right? Let's have a wedding and a wedding celebration, essentially. So verse 10 reads like this. So his father went down unto the woman, and Shimshon made their feast. So used the young men to do. So the young men used to do this. And after Shimshon, after Shimshon prepared a place for his future wife, he went back down to Timnath with his father. Okay? To marry her and for the wedding feast. All right? But let's look in contrast. How did Shimshon obtain his concubine? Yes, Judges chapter 16. He falls into sexual sin, and then after that, he compromises and obtains a concubine. Okay? We know who that concubine is, all right? Who was his forever girlfriend, okay? Because that's what she seems like, the forever girlfriend. Shimshon, in Judges chapter 16, he enters into sin by first being with a harlot in verse 1. And after this, Shimshon settles for a concubine, Delilah, who causes his ultimate fall. Now, Shimshon appears faithful to Delilah. Okay, so it seems like this is a forever boyfriend-girlfriend situation. He makes no plan to make a covenant with her, okay, but he does have relationship with her, okay. But he has no covenant with this Philistine woman. He doesn't consult her father or a male relative in her family, so he's not expressing any interest of making a covenant with her by going to a male relative or a father figure in her life to say, hey, I'm interested in your daughter, or in your cousin or in your sister as a wife. Okay, he doesn't go to any relative. He doesn't pay a bride price for her, nor dowry. Okay, she literally is looking to get her money, her substance. She is literally looking to get her substance from the lords of the Philistines, who are offering her money in exchange for Shimshon, for Samson. Okay, so he's not obliged. He doesn't feel obliged to prepare a place for her or to give her security. All right, but he has relationship. He's intimate with her. Okay. I hear the meows, kitties. Even the case of David, when he obtained his first wife in 1 Samuel chapter 18, 20, 27, or 8, really, chapter 18 through 20, yeah, chapter 18, verse 20 through 28. He himself is not wealthy by any means. And he says to King Shaul that he's not wealthy. But nevertheless, he still, he does a favor. Obviously, in this case, King Shaul is seeking to ensnare David, thinking that the Philistines could kill him by saying he wants 100 foreskins of the Philistines. And David managed to obtain 200, okay, in order to obtain Michal as his first wife, the king's daughter, as his first wife. So, which is pretty interesting. So even if a man was not wealthy, there are certain things that the daughter's father could say, even if the man wasn't wealthy. If you're going to be wed to my daughter, then you have to do this, and you have to make sure you have this in place in order to be married to my daughter. And that man couldn't just go and visit her at will and say, "Hey, honey, let's go hang out. Let's go do something in secret. Or let's go hang out in secret." A lot of times, historically, in our Hebraic culture, the culture of Israel, you wouldn't do that, because we know that there's a possibility that a man could become intimate with the woman before marriage and thereby commit fornication. Okay, and the scriptures commands that they're not to allow their daughters to become whores. Okay, now I'm going to get this book out real quickly, and I'm going to show you some of the things that why the way that we do things is not the way that Yah expects. Okay. Kitty. Oh, Kitty, move back. Okay, I'll be right back. Don't do it, Kitty. Don't try it, Kitty. Move back. Okay. Now, you've seen this author, but she has a book about marriage and some of the origins of marriage. And I really like this part in her chapter. I really like a part in this book, a chapter in this book, that talks about what the modern day concubine is. And really, the modern day concubine is the concept of boyfriend and girlfriend. Because really, if you think about it, when someone has a boyfriend and girlfriend, there is no father involved. There's no, uncle involved. There's no male figure involved to say, "Hey, if you're going to marry this woman, you're going to need to do this, and we're going to need to write up a ketubah of what we expect you to do to take care of, for a father to say, to take care of my daughter, or for a brother to say, to take care of my sister, or for an uncle to say, to take care, to take care of my niece." Because that's what the men would expect. You're like, "Hey, if you were serious about this female in our family," because you're essentially you're marrying into two families. Two families are becoming one. Then this is what we expect. This is what you need to do in order to marry her. She's a great asset and valuable to our family, and you're not going to just take her willy-nilly without paying something, okay? And providing security, because a lot of times the dowry, the bride price is for the family to say for the value of the daughter, in the sense that she's a valuable person in the family, okay? And the dowry, that was the bride price, okay? The bride price was for giving it to the family to say, "Here, for your daughter, for your sister, whatever, this is what we're going to give you." But the dowry was security for the woman. So in the case if the man decided, "Oh, I don't like this woman anymore," or, he suddenly passed away, she has a security net that she doesn't have to make herself become a whore in that society, okay? So it's not left abandoned with no resources to be able to, that would, continue to provide for her in the absence of her husband, all right? So things are set in place to protect the woman, okay? Yah did not set these things up to treat women like cattle and sheep. It was done to be protective. Now I'll read an excerpt here from her book, Guarding Modern Day Concubines. And obviously one of my other books I showed you was done by the same lady, Asa Ray. But as I said, this woman does not believe in Yahushua as being the Messiah, so I'm giving you caution. You have been warned. Okay, but she does have some good points in this book. Okay, this one says, did you know that modern day girlfriends are actually biblical concubines? Let's compare concubines to girlfriends to see the similarities. Girlfriends are concubines by their characteristics. According to many Bible translators, concubines were seen as wives. This is far from the reality because concubines were never wives, but the equivalent of a girlfriend. She was simply a woman engaged in a non-binding sexual relationship with a man. A girlfriend is also in the same kind of relationship. She is devoted by love and affection. As a concubine, a girlfriend can come or go. She is not bound to any man as a wife would be. So she also mentions here about wives and concubines. By mistranslating the word Isha, meaning woman, as the wife, quote, as a wife, this has caused many to get confused as to what it means to be a wife. Wives were honored by their husbands. She was a woman who received dowry and inheritance for her children. She had a joint partnership with the man as Jehovah intended. She was not in the same boat as a concubine. Wives enter into covenants with their husband and vow to have complete devotion. But concubines do not such things. They are simply lovers or bedmates. Okay, the concubine are simply lovers or bedmates. A girlfriend is a woman without a contract. Love and daily bread usually keeps her. More about concubines. A concubine engages in a relationship without the heavy financial perks or inheritance. Although sometimes she may get gifts, she may or may not live with her man. He may or may not buy her things. They may or may not love each other. It might be a relationship for a short time, okay? But it's not like a one-night stand, okay? Like a whore or a harlot. There are key differences a concubine has from a woman with a covenant, a wife. And concubines do not have the same rights and benefits. All right? For instance, a girlfriend could never sue her boyfriend for half of his possessions. Really, the word pelagash, according to her book, pelagash, simply means this: open hand on penis, semen break away. So the word pelagash in Manakathi is a jerking off type of hand sign. In other words, this word is saying that a woman who is a pelagash is a thing a man uses to jerk off. The hand sign is very clear. Okay? So this woman was an object, and as such, the definition of that of a girlfriend might fit that of a concubine. She is a woman whom men love, and she's allowed herself to be an object of his desires, with no benefit for her as a wife would receive. All right? And according to the Torah, a woman who was a man's girlfriend, sleeping with a man while living with her dad, could be accused of playing the whore in her father's house. Okay? The father has authority over his daughter's well-being, and if she's promiscuous, it is his responsibility. The fathers in the scriptures were careful that their daughters did not bring a bad name upon their house. The Torah says not to prostitute your daughters. Okay? A father always collected dowry for his daughter when he gave her away in marriage. Doing so is honorable and not prostituting your daughter. It reads in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 29, "Do not prostitute your daughter. to cause her to be a whore, lest the land fall to whoredom, the whole land fall to whoredom, and the land become full of wickedness. So what happens? What do we see here? Especially when you look at in America in the 1950s, when there's an increase of boyfriend and girlfriend. What started to happen in this nation? There started to be an increase of wickedness because the daughters were going into whoredom, having boyfriend and girlfriend, scenarios, kissing, making out, doing things they weren't supposed to do. And the father had no involvement to protect his daughter, to give her security in a relationship with the man. That happens only in covenant with Yah. Okay? Yah wants his daughters to be wives, not concubines. And we have to understand that everything we've been taught in this society is a lie from the pit of hell, especially when it comes to relationship between male and female, husband and wives, and the like. Okay, this is what I've been showing you of lately. That Yah's ways is to protect both the female and the male, okay? To make sure that everyone understands that both parties, the male is of value and the female is of value, and that the male and the female are to treat each other with like value and like care, to treat each other selflessly, to selflessly give of themselves what Yah expects and asks for each party to do, okay? And obviously it's not equal. Obviously we see the male does a lot more because the male is strong and the female is weak. Remember, the female's inside the body of the man, okay? Therefore, like the organs are not strong outside of this exterior, likewise the female needs that protection, needs to be hidden, okay? So it's the same thing. This is what Yah wants for his daughters. He wants the daughters to be protected. And this is how. All right? So with that, I'm just going to say shalom. Shalom. If you have any questions, genuine questions, please put them in the comment below. All right? I'm trying to, continue to show Yah's standard in contrast to the world standard so that we can walk in his ways, that we can bring Hashemayim here on earth. Because Yahushua, he's coming back. And his kingdom will come here on this earth. And he wants his people to be ready to exemplify his kingdom through kingdom marriages, through healthy family relationships. So this is one of those ways. This is how not to be a concubine. You want to go through the process of, involving your father, having him understand that Yah's ways, that he needs to write a ketubah of what he expects for the man who's interested in you to provide for you. And that the man needs to do his part. He doesn't just give his daughter away. And the man just can't come and contact and call his daughter at will and say, hey, honey, let's go hang out somewhere. No. His father's like, you ain't hanging out nowhere. You're going to do this. We wrote a ketubah. I talked with your father. You're going to do this. And if you don't do it, you're not having my daughter. Okay? You can have my daughter when you fulfill that. And then we can go have a wedding and a celebration and all good. But a father should make sure that his daughter is provided for by whoever that's interested in marrying her. And that there's no entertaining of dating. Dating is a no-no in Yah's book. It's not scriptural, okay? So, and if you don't have a earthly father, say your father passed away or whatnot, then you find a male covering your family or in your faith community that could be that standard of saying, you're not just going to have this sister because you want her. There's things you're going to make sure you're going to prepare for her and you're going to provide for her. And you're going to give her and her family the due measure that's due to them, and understanding that there's two families that are marrying. It's just not two people. It's two families. It really is. It's two families coming together as one. And you want to make sure those two families are compatible. You want to make sure those two families are compatible with each other. Okay? So with that, I'm going to probably maybe do a part 4 on covering some other things that I didn't cover in this video. But for now, I'm just going to say shalom, shalom, and shalom. Shalom.